attending DCP course, fellowship from Osaka University for attending summer school 2004, travel award from ICMR DST and DB2 to present a poster at the International Conference on Emerging Cell Therapies at Doubletree by Hilton Chicago, North Shore, USA. He has published 47 international publications and 30 other publications, and he is an approved research guide for PhD students of University of Kerala and Mahatma Gandhi University, Kerala, and a PhD examiner of Bangalore Health University, Karnataka. He is mainly concentrating on leukemia research, working on leukemia cytogenetics and molecular markers, which are essential for diagnostic and prognostic purpose of leukemia patients. Another area of research is cytogenetic and molecular studies in inhabitants of high natural background radiation areas of Kerala. And the main projects undertaken are cytogenetic studies on the effects of chronic low-level radiation in the residents of high background radiation areas in Kerala. Then molecular genetic basis of resistance to imatinib mesylate treatment in chronic myeloid leukemia, cytogenetic and molecular response study of imatinib mesylate therapy in patients with CML. Then search for a molecular signature of thyroid tumors occurring in people living in high background radiation area, that is Karunagapalli in Kerala. Then a study of gene expression profile in inhabitants of high background radiation of the same spot, Karunagapalli. Then analysis of STAG1, SA1, cohesion mutations in de novo acute myeloid leukemia patients from India, and a comparative study of in vitro culture of AML native blast and cell lines. Then identification of prognostic markers to alleviate the therapeutic changes in advanced phases of chronic myeloid leukemia, a cytogenetic and molecular approach. Then he developed an indigenous software for karyotyping and chromosome abnormality detection. Then clinical relevance of molecular and gene expression signatures in AML patients with normal cytogenetics for a prognostically prioritized molecular classification. Cytogenic and molecular studies in adult acute lymphoblastic leukemia. Then 5 students had completed PhD course and 6 are ongoing. 3 students had completed postdoc course and 1 is ongoing. Then 75 MSc biotechnology as well as life science students were undertaken for short-term project work. Teaching and training given to MD, Diploma, MTS, MSc MLT, BSc MLT students posted from various other institutions. Apart from these research, teaching and training activities, a patient service lab is undertaken for conventional cytogenetics and molecular cytogenetics testing for leukemia and other genetic disease. So in this session, he will reveal the technological advances in cancer diagnosis. So please listen to him. Over to Dr. Hariharan. Sir, please.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Hello? Hello?
Yes, you are audible.
Okay. Defect. Okay, can I start?
Yes, sir.
Can I start? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Thank you for the kind introduction. First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Shreya and the organizing committee for inviting me for a talk. So I'll be talking about cancer diagnosis. So many of us are fear about cancer, whether diagnosed clearly. So there are different techniques to diagnose cancer. So I'll be explaining about what are the different technological advances in cancer which be helpful for the proper diagnosis of the disease. So what is cancer? It's an abnormal cell division without any control. Cancerous cells divide repeatedly out of control, even though they are not needed. They crowd out other normal cells and function abnormally. They can also destroy the correct functioning of major organs. However, cancer cells do not self-destruct and continue to divide rapidly, producing millions of new cells. So what is cancer cells? So what about cancer cells? Cancer cells, the characteristics of cancer cells are its high genomic instability. High genomic instability. The high instability of the most important events in the malignant process. So why this instability? This is because of gene mutations and the chromosomal abnormalities. There are different types of cancers: carcinoma, sarcoma, lymphoma, and leukemias. Carcinoma is the cancer of the epithelial cells. Sarcoma is the cancer of the connective tissues or muscles. Lymphoma is the cancer of lymph nodes, and leukemias are the cancer of blood cells. In cancer, the prognostication and treatment of decisions is made according to the type of chromosomes or gene or protein abnormalities. Then what about how the cancer develops? Cancer is a result of breakdown of the control that regulates cells. So there may be some mutations of normal gene, and these mutations cause cancer. How this mutation causes cancer? That is, because of the mutation, the normal cell is converted into an oncogene. So we have the tumor suppressor gene, DNA repair gene, and these genes are, when get mutated, these cells gets converted into cancer. It is thought that several mutations need to occur to give rise to cancer. There are several mutations, acquired mutations, and germline mutations. Acquired mutations during the course of our life, it is acquired, and the germline mutations are inherited from our ancestors. And about some facts of cancer. Cancer is one of the most common disease in the developed world. It is a genetic disease. 1 in 4 deaths are due to cancer. 1 in 17 deaths are due to lung cancer. Lung cancer is the most common cancer in man. Breast cancer is the most common cancer in women. There are over 200 different forms of cancer. And about cancer incidence. In US, 1 million new cases are detected every year. And 1 in 3 gets cancer. 1 in 4 dies due to cancer. The incidence of cancer is high in males. According to ICMR, in India, every year, 8 lakhs new cases are detected. Every year, 5.5 lakhs cancer patients die in our country. Lung cancer is common in males. Breast cancer is common in females. Cancer is the cause of 12% of all death. In Regional Cancer Center Trivandrum, 16,941 new cases were registered in the last year. In RCC also, breast cancer ranks first in female and lung cancer in male. About 2 lakhs patients are under treatment in RCC. And every day, 200 patients are coming for treatment and other treatment-related activities. The cancer could be treated by surgery, radiotherapy, chemotherapy, and immunotherapy. Some common cancers are lung cancer, oral cancer, breast, uterus, ovary cancer, cervical cancer, thyroid cancer, leukemia, lymphoma, gastrointestinal cancer, prostate, liver, bladder, kidney, and pancreas cancer, and brain tumor. These are the common cancers. So I'm focusing on the diagnostic techniques to diagnose the cancer specifically. You know, there are so many techniques for the diagnosis of cancer. For example, hematology, biochemistry, histopathology, microbiology, then immunohistochemistry, immunocytochemistry, flow cytometry, cytogenetics, FISH, MFISH, comparative genomic hybridization, array CGH, microarray, PCR, RT-PCR, QRT-PCR, Sanger sequencing, NGS, and imageological techniques. So I'll be talking about few of the important techniques. That is from immunohistochemistry. Then what are the samples could be used for the diagnosis of cancer? We can use peripheral blood, fibroblast from skin biopsy, epithelial cell from buccal smear, bone marrow, solid tumor biopsies, swabs, and fluids or aspirations. Then about immunohistochemistry. Immunohistochemistry refers to the process of detecting antigens or proteins in the cells of a tissue section. It takes its name from the roots immuno in reference to antibodies used in the procedure and histo meaning tissue. The method aiming to detect tissue antigen, that is proteins, glycoproteins, and lipoproteins with specific in situ immunodetection. So usually the slides from the histopathological slides, with the help of the antibodies, the antigens are detected. So these antibodies then recognize and bind to those proteins, and these are called as tumor markers. These tumor markers are molecules whose levels are considered as signals, symbols, or representatives of tumor cells and increased in cancerous conditions. So the cancerous condition is identified by the presence of tumor markers. So most of the tumor markers are found to be proteins and some patterns of gene expression and DNA changes. According to immunohistochemistry, visualized tumor markers such as enzyme, oncogenes, tumor-specific antigens, tumor suppressor genes, and tumor proliferation markers. So the doctors can efficiently predict oncogenesis and diagnose the cancer as benign or malignant, or determine the stage and grade of cancer. So there are so many markers: skin markers, connective tissue markers, hormone and hormone receptors, melanoma markers, lymphoma markers, etc. So these markers are in the form of, you are familiar with CEA tests, carcinoembryogenic antigen, cytokeratin, CD15, CD30, alpha fetoprotein, CD117, prostatic specific antigen, especially for prostatic cancer, estrogen and progesterone receptors in breast cancer, CD20 in lymphoma, CD13 in lymphomas. So the main applications of these techniques, it is widely applied for tumor diagnosis and cell tissue typing, cell identification and isolation, detection of pathogens like bacteria, virus, and their antigens. So how this is detected? By specific detection of the receptors. So how, for example, the receptors of progesterone receptor, estrogen receptor, and HER2 new antigen. So we are detecting the presence of these things. So the presence of these things confirm the presence of the tumor, especially breast. In some cases, the identification of primary site in metastatic carcinoma. Metastasis means the cancer from one organ is proliferated to some other organ. That is known as metastasis. So in metastatic cancer, this test is very essential. And also to prognosis, to predicting the prognosis and therapy response, and to identify the different stages of the tumor. and different types of the tumor. And this will help for the specific treatment. So this test is necessary for the specific treatment of such tumors. This is not applicable to all tumors, but there are some specific tumors. This test is essential. Another one, immunocytochemistry. It is very similar to immunohistochemistry. Here, the samples used is cultured cells or cell suspensions. Here, the liquid biopsy is used. Here also, the reaction is there is an antigen-antibody reaction. Here we are detecting the surface antigens, that is known as the markers, in isolated cells or proteins or blood cells. This detection is also based on antigen-antibody binding or immunoreactions. The applications, it is a valuable tool for the determination of cellular contents from individual cells. This provides the most direct method for identifying both the cellular and subcellular distribution of protein. The next technique is flow cytometry. Flow cytometry is the formal definition of flow cytometry according to National Cancer Institute, USA. Is a method of measuring the number of cells in a sample, the percentage of live cells in a sample, and certain characteristics of cells such as size, shape, and the presence of tumor markers on the cell surface. The cells are stained with a light-sensitive dye placed in a fluid and passed in a stream before a laser or other type of light. The measurement are based on how the light-sensitive dyes reacts to the light. This process is called cell sorting. So the instrument is also called as cell sorter. So over the past 2 decades, this flow cytometry has evolved from a highly specialized research tool to an integral component of clinical practice. The progress has been driven by several critical factors, including the emergence of new classifications of hematological and lymphoid malignancies. So this technique is mainly applicable for hematological and lymphoid malignancies. So the hematological and lymphoid malignancy, there are so many sub-classifications. For the specific identification of these malignancies, this technique is used. So this technique is an avoidable challenge upon the pathologist to their routine practice. Having the ability to rapidly analyze thousands of cells per second also allows for quick answer. Here, this equipment or this technique analyzes the cells, the quality of the cells. What is the abnormality in the cells? That is looking by this machine. The results of flow cytometry test back to a clinician within hours. It is a very quick test. The other test, immunohistochemistry, immunocytometry, it will take 2 to 3 days. But here, the result, you will get the result within 2 to 3 hours. Allowing particularly a prompt, it will help for a proper and prompt treatment. So the revolutionized modern diagnostic pathology, many physicians predict this technique as the future pathology. So there is a very important techniques. The applications is in the number of fields, including molecular biology, pathology, immunology, plant biology, and marine biology. Also, it is extensively used in the research for the detection of DNA damage, caspases, cleavage, and apoptosis. It's routinely used in the diagnosis of health disorders, especially in immunophenotyping, in clinical diagnosis and malignance of hematologic and lymphoid malignancies. It is an application in medicine, especially in transplantation, bone marrow transplantation, hematological tumor immunology, chemotherapy, prenatal diagnosis, genetics, and sperm sorting for sex pre-selection. In neuroscience, co-expression of cell surface and intracellular antigen can also be analyzed with the help of this technique for the identification of or the detection of minimal residual disease. After the treatment with a specific drug, whether the patient is responding with the drug, that could be identified by this technique. So this technique would be used, it's many other applications in basic research and clinical trials. The next technique is about cytogenetics. I'll be speaking about cytogenetics and fish elaborately. So these techniques are, I think most of the people are not much aware about this technique. What is cytogenetics? It's a study of chromosomes, its abnormalities, and allied diseases. The study of human chromosomes has been going for well over about 100 years. However, the progress was being impeded by difficulties associated with the preparation of high-quality chromosomes from mammalian cells. So for this technique, we need metaphase cells. In 1956, Tijo and Levin reported the correct chromosome number of human chromosome as 46. Before that, we had no idea about the correct chromosome number of the human being. The first chromosome abnormality associated with a disease was trisomy 21, that is Down syndrome. That was the first chromosome abnormality associated with a disease. Then about chromosomal abnormalities. So for the cancer, especially in cancer and genetic diseases, the chromosomal abnormality is the reason for the disease. So chromosomal abnormalities may be numerical or structural. Milestones was the discovery of the Philadelphia chromosome in CML, which invigorated the field of cancer cytogenetics. So chronic myeloid leukemia was the first cancer which is found to be associated with an chromosomal abnormal, which is known as the Philadelphia chromosome. In 1970s, there were so many staining techniques were evolved that gave chromosome banding pattern. Banding, by greatly improving the accuracy of chromosome analysis, permitted the analysis of many different tissues and diseases. So these banding patterns facilitated the analysis of subchromosomal region. Classical cytogenetics, represented by chromosome banding techniques, was successful in correlating karyotype abnormalities with diagnosis, prognosis, and response to therapy in hematological neoplasm. In hematological neoplasm, especially chronic myeloid leukemia, acute myeloid leukemia, these cytogenetic techniques are very essential for the proper diagnosis of the disease. So what is the significance of chromosomal abnormalities in cancer? First thing, to diagnose the disease, to classify the disease, to take a treatment decision, to predict the treatment response. And about chimerism. Chimerism means for the bone marrow transplantation, when we transplant a patient with a sex mismatched donor, there is a chance of growing the donors. The chance is to grow the donor's cells. So when we analyze the recipient's cells, bone marrow cells, after the response, we should see that particular cells. So for that, we have to we can identify the chimerism with the help of the chromosomal test or cytogenetics. Again, minimal residual detection could also be done with the help of this technique. So usually this technique in cancer, this is mainly used for hematological malignancies. For the sample used is a bone marrow aspirate, and we had to do a tissue culture with the help of RPMI 1640 medium with the help of colchicine. This colchicine is arrest the cells at the metaphase stage, and after that, after the incubation, we had to do the hypotonic treatment, that is ACL treatment, then fixation of the cells, washing, then slide preparation, aging, banding, and finally the karyotyping. The karyotyping could be done manually or with the help of a software. So after preparation of the slides, the chromosome should be screened under the microscope. Good metaphases are identified and photographed and enlarged. Identify the chromosomal abnormals. I'm showing some of the pictures, but you cannot see the pictures. There are so many pictures. Sorry. And usually, for identifying the chromosomal abnormalities, GTG banding, GIMSA, trypsin, GIMSA banding techniques is used. So what GTG banding do? When we do a GTG banding, the chromosomes will appear with light and dark bands. So the pattern of these light and dark bands will help to identify the specific chromosome. So for each chromosome, for example, chromosome number 1, the banding pattern is different from 2, and again it is different from 3. So for each chromosome, there is a specific banding pattern, and with the help of this banding pattern, we are identifying the chromosomes. So this banding pattern was published by International System for Human Cytogenetics Nomenclature, and they have published the human ideogram. By using that human ideogram, we are analyzing the chromosomes. Then what is karyotyping? It is the systematic arrangement of chromosomes in groups of homologous pairs according to the morphology, banding pattern, count, 20 well-spread metaphases photographed, and these chromosomes are cut, printout should be taken, and cut the individual chromosomes and arranged in descending order of length with the help of the ideogram. This is the manual method of doing the karyotyping. And currently we are doing with the help of a software. So in cancer, what are the applications in cancer? First, about chronic myeloid leukemia. So chronic myeloid leukemia is a completely curable disease if treated properly. So 15 to 20% of all leukemias or blood cancers are CML or chronic myeloid leukemia. As I have already mentioned, Philadelphia chromosome is the hallmark of chronic myeloid leukemia. What is this Philadelphia chromosome? It is a translocation of chromosomes 9 and 22. A portion of the chromosome number 9 is translocated to 22. At the same time, a portion from the chromosome number 22 is translocated to 9. So the portion translocated from chromosome number 9 is ABL gene, and from 22 is BCR gene. Because of that, BCR-ABL gene fusion is taking place in chromosome number 22. So this BCR-ABL fusion gene is responsible for chronic myeloid leukemia. So if we target this BCR-ABL fusion gene, this disease could be treated or cured. So for that, currently we have the targeted medicines known as imatinib mesylate or Gleevec. So the treatment decision is taken according to the presence of this translocation 922 or the presence of BCR-ABL fusion gene. So this is very important for the CML. You know, this is a curable disease. For this, cytogenetics tests are very essential. Again, after giving the medicine, treatment monitoring, this test is needed, and to find out additional chromosomal abnormalities, if any, this should also be detected by this technique. And there are some figures of this BCR-ABL fusion gene. This BCR-ABL, this translocation 922 was first identified in 1960 by Nowell and Hungerford. Later, it was found that this translocation is because of the fusion between BCR and ABL fusion gene. So another acute myeloid leukemia. This is a very fatal, deadly disease. So this is a heterogeneous group of malignancies. It's an aggressive disease. Median overall survival is 2 to 3 months usually. There are specific chromosomal abnormalities, which is clear prognostic significances. So that stratification of this disease or therapy is given according to the cytogenetics findings. So according to WHO, different risk group has been identified. So we have good risk, poor risk, and intermediate risk. What is good risk? Means there are some specific chromosomal abnormalities in which whether these chromosomal abnormalities is present in that patient could be treated well. For example, translocation 1517, translocation 821, and inversion 16. If these abnormalities are there, that patient is considered as having good prognostic group. Similarly, intermediate risk group means patients without any structural abnormalities or patients with normal cytogenetics. So patients, in some patients, we cannot identify any chromosomal defect by conventional cytogenetic methods, but there may be some other molecular defects that could be identified by some other techniques. I will mention that techniques also. These patients are known as intermediate risk group, and poor risk group means patient without so many other abnormalities like numerical abnormality, complex chromosomal translocation other than 821, 1517, and inversion 16 are considered as having poor risk group. Another abnormality, acute lymphoblastic leukemia. This is the most common malignancy in children. 25% of pediatric cancer is this acute lymphoblastic leukemia. 80% of pediatric leukemias are acute lymphoblastic leukemia. So this is heterogeneous disease. Distinct therapeutic and prognostic implications are available. Chromosomal aberrations found up to 90% of the cases. And this is considered as the most important prognostic factors. But in ALL, acute lymphoblastic leukemia, the conventional cytogenetic analysis are limited by the low mitotic activity of malignant B lymphocytes. So sometimes it is very difficult to identify the chromosomal abnormalities by these techniques. So we will use the next technique, that is fluorescent in situ hybridization technique. And similarly, in multiple myeloma, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, myelodysplastic syndrome, so many chromosomal abnormalities have been identified, and these are associated with the favorable or unfavorable prognosis. So even though this is a gold standard method, there are so many limitations for this classical cytogenetics. So this technique needs a high rate of cell division and good chromosomal morphology. Otherwise, it is very difficult to analyze the chromosomes. A long period for assaying and analyzing. So because when we take a sample from a patient, we cannot give the result within 2-3 days. It will take 1 or 2 weeks to give the results. So that is a limitation. And it is a labor-intensive process. So many persons should do so many work to complete the analysis. It's a time-consuming. And another important thing, expert cytogeneticist is needed, which is usually a challenge for physicians. Sometimes the sensitivity of chromosomal banding technique is limited. Usually it is 20 MB. In some cases, malignant cells are not proliferating in cell culture. Only normal cells are dividing. So the results of the cytogenetic examination is not representative of the malignant process. So when we do a culture of the sample, sometimes abnormal cell will not divide, only normal cells will divide. That will give a chance to give a false result. That's a limitation. Sometimes, most of the leukemia cases, complex chromosomal abnormalities could be seen, and this could not be identified correctly by this technique. And the most important advantage of this technique is morphology of the chromosomes could be viewed in a single metaphase preparation, and it is less expensive. It is a very comparatively cheap technique, and all the chromosomes could be seen in a single view. We can identify most of the abnormalities if we get a good metaphase preparation. And the next technique is fluorescent in situ hybridization, or FISH. This technique was introduced in the late 1980s. It is a powerful technique used in the detection of chromosomal abnormalities. This is a simple yet effective technique, has revolutionized the cytogeneticist and has become well established in its potential as a diagnostic and discovery tool in the fight against cancer. The high sensitivity and specificity of FISH and the speed of which the assay can be performed have made FISH a pivotal cytogenetic technique that has provided significant advances in both the research and diagnosis of hematological malignancies and solid tumors. And this test, the main applications to detect the genetic abnormalities, all the chromosomal abnormalities or DNA level abnormalities could be identified with this technique. The gene fusion, I have explained about BCR-ABL gene fusion. This is very specific for chronic myeloid leukemia. Identification of aneuploidy, chromosomal loss, or loss of chromosomal region, or the loss of whole chromosome, or the identification of the presence of a whole chromosome to monitor the progression of an aberration. Research application as in gene mapping, the identification of novel oncogenes. So these are the main applications of this technique. So the FISH, there is interface, we can do the FISH in interface or metaphase. And again, we can identify the centromere, the presence of the centromere. And we are using, for this identification of this, we are using so many probes. There are some specific probes for identifying the chromosomes. They are centromere specific probe, locus specific probe, whole chromosome painting probe, and telomeric specific probe. So with the help of the specific probe, we can identify the chromosomal abnormality. So many pictures are here. I'm sorry. In hematological malignancies, the application of FISH is very, very high. So to find out the abnormality in CML, AML, acute myeloid leukemia, acute lymphoblastic leukemia, chronic lymphocytic leukemia, and multiple myeloma, MDS, in all these cancers, these techniques are using for confirming the chromosomal or gene level abnormalities. In chronic lymphocytic leukemia, this is not very common in India, but this chronic lymphocytic leukemia is very common in US. And usually in chronic lymphocytic leukemia, cytogenetic analysis is very difficult. So FISH-based analysis is the key genetic markers to detect the abnormalities in about 80% of the CLL patients. So again, this is associated with prognosis and therapeutic response. So the presence of the chromosomal abnormalities is predicting the prognosis of the disease or the treatment option to be selected by the clinicians. And in solid tumors, prostate cancer, breast cancer, colon cancer, gastric cancer, lung cancer, this technique is used, especially in breast cancer, HER2, new PI3K pathway. In all these things, this technique is used. And the next technique is spectral karyotyping or multi-band FISH. This spectral karyotyping is a multiplex FISH. It's a novel molecular technique. This is a FISH-based technique that allows color karyotyping of the chromosome. In classical cytogenetics, all the chromosomes are seen in black and white picture. But in spectral karyotyping, you can see the chromosomes with different colors, 24 different colors. So this technique combines the power of conventional chromosome analysis with specificity of FISH, which limits the analysis to specific chromosome regions of the chromosome. This permits the visualization of all chromosomes in one time, in one picture. So each chromosome is painted in different color. You can see the translocation or the loss or the trisomy, all the things could be seen in a single picture. So there are so many pictures I had to show. Sorry for technical error. So What are the applications of this TIE as a diagnostic tool? Before the development of this technique, cytogeneticists analyzed the chromosome with staining technique that produced black and white banding pattern. As I have already told, in acute lymphoblastic leukemia, the chromosomal aberration in a complex karyotype was often not possible. So this technique is useful. Identification of subtle chromosomal aberrations such as the translocation of telomeric chromatin, which is difficult to discern using banding alone, and the identification of small markers which remain elusive after conventional banding technique. Visualization of all chromosomes at one time is the specialty with different colors. And what is the limitation of this technique? This is very costly. The equipments are costly. Software is costly. Expert analysis is needed. The next technique is comparative genomic hybridization, or CGH. This is based on quantitative two-color fish. CGS analyzing copy number variation relative to ploidy level in the DNA for a test sample compared to a reference sample without the need of culturing cells. So it could be directly used without culturing some cell suspension or cells. So we can identify the entire genome, DNA copy number of variation across the whole genome. You can identify the copy number variation in the whole genome. The aim is to quickly and efficiently compare two genomic DNA samples arising from two sources which are often closely related. So what is the difference in this genetic makeup in two samples which are from a closely related organism? So this is originally developed for the evaluation of differences between the chromosomal components of solid tumors and normal tissues. The conventional cytogenetic techniques is difficult for identifying abnormalities in solid tumors. There, this comparative genomic hybridization technique is used. The advantages of these techniques. The major advantage of this technique is that only DNA from the tumor sample is needed for analysis. This often avoids the difficult preparation of tumor metaphase chromosome, which can prove a poor morphology and resolution. So we don't need the metaphase samples. We need only DNA samples. So even formalin fixed tissue sections can also be used. So in other case, in our conventional cytogenetics, formalin fixed tissues could not be used. And this is useful for the analysis of chromosomal gains and losses in solid tumors and other malignancies. So these genetic changes could be correlated with the clinical course of the disease. The next technique is array CGH, array comparative genomic hybridization. This technology for molecular karyotyping with a resolution of 100 kilobases in KB, there MB, here it is KB. To 1 MB is an example for tremendous technical advances in cytogenetics that have changed the clinical diagnostic and research approaches. This technique greatly improves the resolution of the technique by substituting hybridization of targets, the metaphase chromosome spread with genomic segments plotted in an array format. So we can identify the very tiny parts of the chromosomes. It's a powerful technology to identify the responsible genes and assess their oncogenic capacity in the appropriate genetic context. This technique has been used to map genetic abnormalities in a wide range of tumors, including breast cancer, bladder cancer, fallopian tube cancer, gastric cancer, melanoma, and lymphoma. So for all these techniques, there are different techniques. All these techniques are used to diagnose different types of cancer. There are over 200 different types of cancer. All the cancers could not be diagnosed with a single technique. Different techniques are used. Some techniques are used for the primary confirmation, primary identification. Then the next technique is used for the confirmation. The main advantage of these techniques This technique could be used for measuring allelic loss or heterozygosity, copy number changes, sensitive and specific detection of single copy number changes in the submicroscopic level throughout the entire human genome. We can identify the genome which is submicroscopic. This allows the recognition of deletions and duplication of genome in a single experiment. You can identify the general polymorphisms, characterization of acquired genetic changes, prenatal diagnosis, identification of congenital genetic defects, and evolutionary characterization. These are the main advantages of these techniques. Then there are some limitations for this technique. These techniques will not detect balanced rearrangements and low-level mosaicism for unbalanced numeric or structural rearrangements. All the gains and losses identified on the array CGH should be validated by FISH or molecular conformation analysis. Before applying array CGH in a diagnostic setting, a better knowledge of the polymorphism present in general population is true. We should have an idea about the general polymorphism of our population is required. Then another important molecular technique is polymerase chain reaction. Most of you are aware about this technique. This is a method to produce millions of copies of DNA fragments from a minute quantity of sample. It's a highly efficient that untold number of copies can be made from a small quantity of DNA. We are using, for the identification for amplifying, we are using primers. Primers are short single standard DNA sequences that are synthesized to correspond the beginning and ending of the DNA stretch to be copied. Or an enzyme called polymerase, Taq polymerase, that moves along the segment of DNA, reading its code and assembling a copy and pile of DNA building blocks that can be the polymerase needs to make that copy. So number of copies are formed. We have so many steps for doing this reaction. We are doing 30 to 40 cycles, and the steps, all these things are done in an automated cycler known as thermocycler, which rapidly heats and cools the test tubes containing the reaction mixture. So there are so many steps: denaturation, annealing, and extension. All these things are taking place in different temperature. What are the applications of this PCR in medicine? This is used in analyzing clinical specimens for the presence of infectious agents, including HIV, hepatitis, corona, malaria, anthrax, etc. All these things, this technique is used. Provide information on patients' prognosis, predicts response or resistance to therapy. Many cancers are characterized by small mutation in certain genes, and this is what PCR is employed to identify. So the techniques I have mentioned up to this, small mutations could not be identified with the techniques, but with the help of the PCR, you can identify the mutations. Many genetic diseases are due to these mutations. Also cancer. In forensic laboratories, only tiny amount of original DNA is required. Sufficient DNA can be obtained from a droplet of blood or a single hair. The Human Genome Project for determining the sequence of the 3 billion base pairs of the human genome relied heavily on PCR. So this PCR method was used for identifying the whole genome in the Human Genome Project. And the next technique, reverse transcriptase polymerase chain reaction, or RT-PCR. This is a highly sensitive technique for the detection and quantification of mRNA or messenger RNA. This consists of two parts: the synthesis of cDNA and from the cDNA from the RNA by reverse transcription. First, we are isolating the RNA. Then we are doing the cDNA preparation. Then again, we are doing the polymerase chain reaction from cDNA. So this technique mainly used to measure viral loads of different diseases. Now you have heard about the corona. There also this technique is used. In cancer, the diagnosis of the fusion genes like BCR-ABL, PML-RARA, AML-ETO genes could be identified with the help of this technique. And the next technique I'm going to explain is quantitative real-time PCR. Quantitative real-time PCR is a major development of PCR technology that enables reliable detections and measurement of products generated during each cycle of PCR process. This was developed as a precise, efficient, and rapid method for nucleic acid detection. This is based on traditional polymerase chain reaction technology with a few improvements. So here, combines nucleic acid amplification and detection in one step. So we need only one step. Smaller amounts of starting material than the traditional PCR. Here for the traditional PCR, we need some more quantity of DNA or RNA, but here small amount of DNA is needed for qPCR. It is possible to quantify the products based on the fluorescent detection. There is no post-amplification process. This advent or the real-time PCR has dramatically changed the field for measuring gene expression. That is the presence of, for example, so after the treatment of a specific disease or chronic myeloid leukemia, so I have already mentioned, for the detection of minimal residual, after giving a specific medicine, we want to know the quantity of the abnormal gene present in the body. So for this, qRT-PCR is used. That is absolute quantification of gene expression. And the validation of DNA microarray results. So there is another technique, DNA microarray. I will explain that. And the validation of that result could be done with the help of qRT-PCR. Then for counting bacterial, viral, or fungal loads, then for identifying microRNAs, non-coding RNAs, and genetic variation, mutation detection, single nucleotide polymorphism analysis, genotyping, and allelic discrimination. All these things could be done with the help of this qRT-PCR. And there are some disadvantages for this technique. One thing, the cost of the equipment is very high. It is 60 to 70 lakhs. The cost of the chemicals and consumables are very high. The loading time is very high. The sensitivity to errors, there is a chance of getting that sensitivity errors. And the data analysis is a tedious process. These are the disadvantages. And the next technique is Sankey sequencing. This technique was developed in 1977 by Frederick Shanker, who was awarded the Nobel Prize in Chemistry in 1980. This method, which is now known as the first generation sequencing, is rather similar to PCR because single-strand DNA template, a DNA primer, DNA polymerase, and deoxynucleotide triphosphatase or DNTPs are also required to perform the reaction. This method is also known as the chain termination method. This can produce longer reads than most of the second generation techniques, which produce short reads. Here we will get long reads. High quality sequence relatively long stretches of DNA up to 90 crore base pairs. So this is used to sequence individual pieces of DNA such as bacterial plasmid or DNA copied in PCR. That is, so if you want to detect some mutations in a patient after doing the PCR, that is amplification of the DNA, we have to do the sequencing. And this sequencing technique could identify the mutation in which which area the mutation has occurred. One drawback of this technique is an expensive technique and inefficient for large scale projects such as the sequencing of an entire genome and metagenomics. So for when we consider the Sankey sequencing, we cannot sequence long DNA. We can sequence only a small DNA. That is the drawback of this technique. The next technique I'm going to explain is microarray. It is not possible to research on a large number of genes using traditional methods. All these methods I have explained, it is not possible to research on a large number of genes. But this technique, DNA microarrays, on such technology which enables the researchers to investigate and address the issues which were once thought to be a non-traceable. DNA microarray is a collection of microscopic DNA spots attached on a solid surface or slides. So there are microscopic spots. These microscopic spots contain the probes or the reporter or oligos. That probes helps to identify the gene change or expression. So number of spots are seen in a single slide. So this can be a short section of a gene or a DNA element that are used for hybridized cDNA or cRNA sample under high stringency condition. So in cancer, tumor formation involves simultaneous changes in hundreds of cells and variation in genes. So tumor is not because of a single gene variation. There are a number of genes are changed. So that could be identified with the help of this technique. This technique provides platform for simultaneous testing of a large set of genetic samples. For example, we can compare the different patterns of gene expression levels between a group of cancer patients and a group of normal subjects and identify the gene associated with that particular cancer. Until recently, different types of cancer have been classified on the basis of the organ in which the tumor developed. So the cancer classification is according to the organs where the cancer developed. It helps especially in the identification of single nucleotide polymorphisms or SNPs and mutations, classification of tumor, identification of target genes, tumor suppressors, identification of cancer biomarkers, identification of gene-associated chemoresistance, and drug discovery. In all these areas, these techniques could be used. Practical application in future include diagnostic and prognostic management of patients. Clinicians will be able to use this technique during early clinical trials to confirm the mechanism of action of drugs and to assess the drug sensitivity and toxicity. So for the drug sensitivity and toxicity, this technique to identify, this technique could be used. It can be used to develop a new molecular taxonomy of cancer, including clustering of cancer according to the prognostic group on the basis of gene expression profiles. Areas can be coupled with the microarray technologies include classification of disease or molecular phenotyping, the study of gene function in relation to gene regulatory works or functional genomics, pharmacogenomics, and in developmental biology. Next, and the last technique I am going to explain is NGS, next generation sequencing. It's also called massive parallel sequencing. Was developed in the last decade and allows simultaneous sequencing of millions of DNA fragments without previous sequence knowledge. In 1976, the first bacterial genome was sequenced by the help of Sanger sequencing. Genomic sequencing was become increasingly available over the past few decades. The Human Genome Project, which was launched in 1990, required 30 years and billions of euros in order to sequence the complete human genome. All the sequencing was done with the help of this Sanger sequencing. So this NGS sequencing is a cornerstone of precision of oncology. So today, we can complete the genome can be sequenced in a few days or less than $1,000 per genome. We can analyze the whole genome with $1,000. The advent of this NGS in the past decade has made tremendous impact on basic and clinical research. This sequencing method detects the difference in specific DNA sequences between sample and reference genome or matched normal DNA. So here, first we have to, so simply we can say as a control, what is the genetic sequence seen in a normal person and what is the genetic sequence seen in a patient. So we are comparing the two genomics. That is what is doing in NGS. And what is the difference seen in the NGS result or the patient's result. So this is an accurate and sensitive and high-speedy method. It has a potential to make significant impact in the field of oncology. So this NGS can assess multiple genes in a single assay. It eliminates the need to order multiple tests to identify the causative mutation. So if you do a test of NGS in a cancer patient, all the abnormalities can be identified with the help of a single test. So I have mentioned about so many tests. So for a cancer patient, nowadays so many tests are being done to identify the abnormality. So if you do NGS, single test is enough to identify all the abnormalities. So it can provide high sensitivity, even mutation that present as little as 5% of the DNA isolated from a tumor sample. That is the sensitivity of this testing. So it has the potential to change the future oncology and advance the promise of personalized medicine. Personalized medicine. What is personalized medicine? So the treatment will be given according to the genetic abnormalities seen in a patient. So if we see two disease, if you take two acute myeloid leukemia patients, the treatment could not be similar or same. So if you do an NGS, you can see difference in genetic makeup of the two acute myeloid leukemia patients. So accordingly, we can predict, we can give a treatment. So this is a major revolution in the analysis of cancer genome over the last few years, and has been the application of this NGS that can provide unparalleled insight into the individual cancer genome. So this analysis has fallen down sufficiently to consider a routine part of the cancer workup in the future. Currently, it is not used as a routine workup. Currently, the routine workup up to the Sankey sequencing. And all the other techniques are usually done in cancer research. It is not done as a routine test. But here, this could, in future, this NGS could be considered as a routine test. A genomics-focused pharmacology begins to play a greater role in cancer treatment, this emerging as a valuable method for obtaining a deeper and more accurate look into the molecular underpinning of the individual tumors. Multiple target sequences in cancer-related genes can be amplified, and the capacity of NGS is such that multiple genes from multiple patients could be easily be simultaneously analyzed in a single run. So in a single run, we can identify all the gene abnormalities. So you can identify all the abnormalities with the help of a single test. So with the targeted therapies becoming the new standard of care in oncology, NGS-driven companion diagnostics are widely seen in driving the selection of treatments to optimize the patient outcomes in the future. These are the techniques I have to mention in cancer diagnosis. And in summary, from molecular standpoint, cancer is a complex disease involving a set of genetic alteration and subsequent changes of gene expression patterns that induce uncontrolled proliferation. In fact, two cancers with the same histologic origin may be different in the growing, spreading, and also treatment response. These differences derived from unique genetic contents of each cancer. Although DNA is the same in different cells encoding genes of an organ different from others. Different types of tumors may have similar DNA, but their genome expression patterns is diverse. In this way, understanding the genomic characterization transcriptomic landscapes of cancer is paving the way of diagnostic, prognostic, and predictive biomarkers, leading to the shape of unsustainable and effective treatment for each patient. Apt diagnostic test may be selected for specific diagnosis of specific cases. In conclusion, the impact of all these techniques has increased dramatically during the recent years for the proper diagnosis of cancer. Laboratory techniques have to be optimized to provide reliable results for optimal patient care. Quick and correct results save time and money by preventing unnecessary additional diagnostics and suboptimal treatment approaches. All these techniques only aids the clinician to select the appropriate therapy which targets the abnormal chromosome, mutated genes, proteins, but also can reveal the cause of resistance mechanism to chemotherapy or targeted therapy. Thank you. Hello.
Thank you, sir. We all know that comprehensive
Hello.
diagnosis.
Okay.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
So we all know that.
Yes, I
Yeah.
can hear.
Yeah. We all know that comprehensive diagnosis of hereditary
Yeah.
cancer syndromes presents a challenge even in the post-genomic era. From your presentation, we got a clear picture about the role and the significance of the biomarkers in tumor tissues and cells, which help in understanding tumorigenesis and metastasis processes. So these diagnostic tests based on such information should enable real-time biopsies of cancer progression and responses to therapy. And these new molecular and cellular technologies will enable more precise and objective decision making. And also we came to know the important advantage of FISH technique to clinical practice is the capability to analyze chromosomal alterations in non-dividing cells directly in cytological preparations as well as in tissue sections. So relevant to tailoring treatment regimes is clearly a clinical and consumer reality together with plummeting the sequencing cells, then screening hundreds of genes within a time frame. So we know how much effort and energy you put into your work. When you spoke, I felt I was in the presence of a man who really loves his job. We all recognizes the tremendous effort you had put into the presentation. You are to be thanked and complimented, sir. Now we can have interactions with our participants.
Yes.
Dear participants, do you have any queries? Please write in the chat box. Sir, from Kachari Das, please suggest a low-cost confirmatory supportive technique for the diagnosis by chromosomal analysis so that common people can get help. Low-cost confirmatory supportive.
So the chromosomal. So when you consider cancer, the chromosomal abnormalities mainly coming in hematological malignancies, that is blood cancers. In blood cancers, the chromosomal abnormalities are very, very important. This is the basic thing for the treatment decision and specific diagnosis. The conventional cytogenetics itself, it is a very low cost techniques. It comes below 500 or 1000 only. But the other techniques are very costly. If you consider FISH, it is costly, somewhat costly. It is about 4,500 rupees for a single abnormality. Single abnormality in the sense, if you want to identify the BCR-ABL translocation in a patient, or for the confirmation, you need 4,500. But when you do a chromosomal analysis or conventional cytogenetics, with that chromosomal analysis itself, you can identify all the abnormalities in the metaphase. So sometimes, apart from the BCR or translocation 922, that is a hallmark of CML, other abnormalities could be seen when you do the karyotype. So the karyotyping is very essential. Even though you have so many newer and newer techniques are available, even up to NGS, this chromosomal abnormal detection of the chromosomal abnormality is essential nowadays. So it is called as a gold standard method. It is a comparatively less expensive technique. And it is that the main thing is it's time consuming. Sometimes we will not get a specific results because of the unavailability of the dividing cells. That is a drawback. But this is a less expensive technique.
So
Okay.
Yes. Another question from Madhu Sharma. Can you please suggest any software for karyotyping?
Yeah, so many softwares are available. Most of the softwares are imported one. We have applied imaging software, Cytovision, and Icarus. So many softwares are available. But currently, all these softwares are very, very costly. 6, 7, 8 lakhs, all these software costs. And currently, I am developing a software, indigenous software for doing this karyotype. I think my software, if it is come into market, it will be very, very cheap. Below 1 lakh rupees, I can produce this software. So I am preparing that software. I have a project with the Kerala Science and Technology. I'm generating that software with the help of Karunagapalli Engineering College. Okay.
Yes. Good information, sir. Then another question, are there any technique to analyze carcinogenic exposure, particularly asbestos exposure? From Dimbi Das.
Carcinogenic exposure. There are so many carcinogens. So, so carcinogenic exposure, we are always in exposure to these carcinogens. We are always radiations, chemicals, smoking. All these things are the pollutants. We are always this. Then how can we identify a carcinogenic exposure? Usually, because of this carcinogenic exposure, there should be some DNA damage. So, if radiation is a carcinogen, usually a person with radiation exposure, if you do a chromosome studies of the patient, you will get several breaks, chromosome breaks, single strand breaks or double strand breaks or dicentrics or ring chromosome could be seen when you are exposed to radiation. So for other exposures, we don't have some specific tests for identifying the radiation exposure. So even though if you are not, you have some radiation exposure, you have some mechanism to repair that abnormality or chromosomal or DNA level abnormality. So the bodies get repaired and you will not get cancer. So if you are getting some radiation, no need to fear. Okay. Clear?
Sir?
Clear?
Yeah.
Clear?
Yeah, sir. So I hope we have covered all the queries. I express my sincere thanks to you for accepting our invitation and being a part